Alright, so today we have on the show we have Tony Gray. He's currently working on Mick and Me in Saturday afternoon for syndicated comic strips. You can see it in the Windsor Star. He worked on White Plastic, which is a superhero sci-fi comic for Legacy Comics. He has done Cold Blooded, vampire comic for North Star Comics. He was a He was a drummer in the band Doomsday Dogs in the 90s. And he's currently working on 3 commissioned retro-style alternative covers for Spider-Man, Hulk, and Captain America. Alright, so first of all, Tony, let's talk about what your views are on the current issues of Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay, the new issues of Spider-Man are the ones that deal with the brand new day, which is eliminating the last 20 years or so of the Amazing Spider-Man, getting rid of all of the things that they felt pulled away from the character of Spider-Man, or the charm of the character of Spider-Man, which is him being married, fighting huge supervillains kind of outside of his power realm, storylines where he dies and comes back to life. So they've gone back and said, let's go back to the roots of what Spider-Man is. Now they took an unusual way of doing this by having Mephisto, who is like the devil character in Marvel, come in and pretty much erase all of this from everybody's mind on the planet, essentially.
Yeah.
The way that they got there is a little unusual, but in reading these stories that have come up, the first story arcs, they've been publishing these things once a week now, or rather 3 times a month. Different art and writing team on each little segment. It started out with a pretty nice run by McNiven and who is a slot guy, some slot guy. I don't even know his first name. He's the writer. The slot is writing these things. And it was a pretty good run. It took them right back to that early feel of what Spider-Man was. But by the 4th arc, they've pretty much gone back to what they were trying to get away from in the first place, which was having him fighting some supernatural nonsense that had puts him out of the realm of the normal guy like you and I that could be throwing a suit on and having like everyday problems.
Because it was like a Mayan god or something like that. Yeah,
in New York City.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. It's almost as frequent as it happens here.
Oh yeah, in winter. Yeah.
I was walking down the street the other day, and there was a couple of mummies coming up and being chased by an Aztec warrior.
Yeah, Spider-Man just swinging by. Yeah. What can you do?
It can happen.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen as frequently as these comics let on.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, but the art just got slowly worse and worse.
The initial run was pretty good, but yeah, you're right. The artwork got more and more stylized, and again, farther away from what people really read the Spider-Man comic for in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of it, Drew?
Well, it wasn't bad. I thought McNiven's work was great, but like I said, the story wasn't. It brought me back. Because I was in the 60s reading it. But but no, I appreciated that work back then. I did start reading it in the 90s, but it felt like you're reading it back in the 60s. Right. Basic storyline, there's not a lot of really unrealistic god-like characters.
Sure.
But then they got into it. You look at this kind of Mayan god stuff.
Yeah.
Look at that right there.
And
the artwork is just again. The artwork is just terrible.
Yeah.
So
the concept of going back to Spider-Man and bringing him back to his roots, I think, is pretty much lost. And when you start having him bundled up with newspapers and looking the size of the abominable snowman trying to fight, it's just kind of a ridiculous.
And then remember, he hit that pole, and the newspapers magically weren't there anymore.
Yeah, so from one panel to the next, he was huge. The realism isn't quite there. It's almost as bad as the comics that you grew up with.
Yeah. That early Bagley stuff. Yeah. Well, speaking of artwork, let's. Are you going to tell us about what you're working on right now with the?
What I was commissioned to do through my syndicate for Marvel is to put together 3 retro style covers. Now Marvel issues what's called variant covers. So let's say they run 50,000 copies of a particular title. Maybe every 10th one will have a different cover on it than the standard one that you would pick up in the convenience store or even your local comic store. So there are fewer of those, and the idea is to make those more rare and more valuable. So what I've been picked to do is to do retro style variant covers. So for Spider-Man, the one that I've actually completed up to now, they've asked me to go back and do it in the style of the classic Spider-Man artist Johnny Romita Sr. John Romita Jr., who drew him in the 80s
Sucks,
and 90s.
yeah.
Is not who we're talking about. We're talking about the old style Amazing Spider-Man. This was when Spider-Man was basically at his peak in sales popularity. At this point in time, when John Romita Sr. was drawing Spider-Man, this book was the most popular book on the shelves. It was probably selling about 1.2 million copies a month. It's colossal, especially considering now it maybe sells about 130,000.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about 12,000, or 10 to 12,000, or 12 times more than
what it is
what
now.
It's currently selling. So I'm trying to match that John Romita style. So the initial thing that I did